big thing for me too is understanding what are my values
Mhm.
and then how do I live a life that honors them, because that's when you feel most alive, And one
Mhm.
of my values is progress over perfection. I'm not a perfectionist, therefore I'm not afraid to write a song and sing it in front of a group of people. Like, I've totally botched things on stage, but I love doing it. And what if we're not showing up in our humanity and afraid to make mistakes, then we're going to hold ourselves back. I might mess up or whatever that might be, or fail, frankly, and that would be heartbreaking. But also, what if I didn't try?
Hey everyone, March is Women's History Month, and we are so excited to bring you something special this month. It's a little series we're calling Redefining the Role. So, over the next few weeks, we're talking to women who are redefining or who have redefined pieces and parts of their lives, and who are doing so in a way that feels true to who they are. And also, we think, in ways that feel true to the vision of the world that probably a lot of us are ready to see. So, join us for some fresh voices and fresh perspectives as we talk about redefining the roles we're in. Let's get to it.
Welcome back to Soul Snacks, everybody. We are super excited today because we have a very special guest joining us today. Our guest this week is Jamie Dionne. Jamie is a mother, a business leader, a nonprofit founder, and a singer songwriter. She's lived through seasons of big transitions and has stepped boldly into her creative voice by making space for those things that resonate most for her, both professionally and personally. So naturally, we wanted to invite her to talk more about those things that she's doing. In this conversation, we talk about what it really means to hold multiple identities as one human, how to trust yourself when the paths keep on changing. This episode is for anyone standing on the edge of change, for anyone who's outgrown an old version of themselves, and for anyone who needs permission to be more than one thing. So, without further ado, and before we dive in, hey Jamie, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. And those are really nice things you said about me. So thank you.
You-
You're welcome. You
You're
deserve
our,
them all.
you're our first official guest aside from our husbands, and they didn't really have a choice. So we feel like we
Woo,
really had to step it up.
Yeah,
what an
exactly.
honor.
So thank you for being with us today. We are really excited to talk to you. And I kind of want to kick it off by asking you, kind of for you to give our listeners a quick snapshot of who you are right now. Not everything you do, but just what feels most alive in this season of your life. It's a
Okay.
big question. Coming at you with a big question, right?
Totally.
Just
Let's
right
just
out
keep
of the
it
gate.
at this level, okay?
No
uh,
pressure.
you outlined a lot of what I do, but right now, actually, when you asked me to do this at the time, only one of these things was true. But I'm about to turn 40. I am very recently, unemployed for the first time in my life since I was 18. And so that's definitely ringing very loudly right now. Is this, I would say, big change energy. Um, there might have been a time in my life where if I said I was 40 and unemployed, that would scare the hell out of me. But I'm here for it. I'm so excited. And um, I think about, I'm a mom of a preteen daughter who's amazing, and she's in middle school, and she's thriving, which is kind of wild. But I'm grateful for that. Um, and my partner and I, we moved into a home that we've been spending the last couple of years building. So there's like lots of new beginnings in life, and there's lots of endings, and there's lots of unknown and excitement. It's kind of where I'm at.
Wow. Yeah. So it does sound like you have a lot going on. But you also sound very calm about everything, which I think a lot of people, if they found themselves unemployed at 40, would kind of be freaking out a little bit. But I think that's one of the reasons, again, why we have you here today, because you not only do you always seem to manage to stay calm in the middle of upheaval, which I never really understood how you could do that all the time, but it's just truly a gift you have. But I want to get into a little bit about like creating space for doing what we love, okay? Because I have a sense that you're going to talk to us a little bit about what your next steps are going to look like based on the fact that you're not really upset that you're unemployed right now. So, um, so when we talk about creating space, or especially when we're holding a lot of roles at once, which you're currently doing, when you hear that, what does that bring up emotionally for you?
Um, well, probably curiosity at first, like just the mentality of being curious. I go through phases where life feels so full and I realize I'm not even really feeling or experiencing the things I'm doing. And at that moment, I get curious about, okay, why am I doing these things? Are they filling my cup? Are they aligned with how I want to live my life? And that constant evolution of curiosity comes up. Um, and I mean, it also can feel overwhelming when you think about creating space for the things that you love. Like, yeah, that's a joke, right? How much time do we have in a day? But one of the things that has really anchored me is like the little things are the big things. And
Mm,
so it's not always about making huge sweeping changes in your life, but if there's things that bring you joy that you want to explore, you don't necessarily need hours a day to do it. I love playing the guitar, but I don't have hours. Well, I didn't have hours during the day to do that. Maybe now I will, but I've got it out and I tune it every morning. And if I can find 10 minutes to do that, that brings me joy. And I've noticed that brings me almost as much of the same like neurological calm and joy as an hour or two would give me. And so over time, it's like the little things are the big things. And I think overwhelm can come to mind when you think about making space. And that's really helped me reframe that a bit.
mm,
It's the little things.
I love that. Yeah. And I think those are things that we forget about a lot because we are always so wrapped up in all of the things that we have to accomplish in a day, especially, for those of us and all three of us, two of us own our own businesses. And well, Jamie, you started a foundation, plus have been working in corporate America for how many years now? 15, 13? I don't even know how long, probably
We'll always
longer than that.
be together. Yeah. Long
Yeah.
time. Long time.
Yeah. Um, was there a moment or a season when you realized your worth couldn't be tied to just one role anymore? And then a follow-up question to that is kind of like, and if there was, what forced you to that realization?
Yeah. There definitely was. There was a lot of therapy happening at that time, right?
Honest answer. We like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the thing the moment, I don't know if there's a moment, but there's a period of life where I must have been experiencing burnout. I guess that'd be the best term for it. I wasn't necessarily doing more things than I'm currently doing now, but they were not things that were bringing me joy. And I've found myself in a spot where I had become a new mom. And prior to that, I started my career at 18. And I think because I skipped the traditional college course, I always had this sense that I had to work harder than everybody else. I had to put more hours in than everybody else. And so and I was always rewarded for that. And so I think I became addicted to that
Mm,
feeling.
mhm,
Um, and became very career oriented very early on. And my partner at the time, we worked together and lived together. He was also very driven. And so I found myself years later in this spot where I'm a new mom. That's very exciting in my life. And every ounce of everything else outside of that it was work because we talk about work at home. We went to work. Our coworkers became our closest friends because of necessity in a lot of ways. But they weren't like real in depth relationships.
mm,
And I was completely burnt out and realized there were no other parts of me besides my career, which was working in an organization that I didn't start myself, working for someone else, and um, being a mom. And I realized like there's a lot more to life, and I've got to make some changes in my current situation to create space for that.
mhm. Okay. So, oh, go ahead, Becca. I saw
Well,
you
I
were
was
going to
just
say
going to say,
something.
so, I mean, that's like we talk a lot on here about pivotal moments, right? And that's like a huge pivot. And that recognition of, oh my gosh, this thing that I've been building, right? This, whether it's the relationship, the career, like all of the values that become, you know, that we're conditioned to and that also become a part of our identity. I mean, that's like heavy stuff. And then not even to mention, and I say not to mention, I don't have my own children, right? So I can't understand what a new maternal journey looks like with hormones and the whole shift that that takes. So when you say that you had to start like making space, right? But also you said earlier that creating space can sometimes feel really overwhelming. So you're at this pivotal moment where overwhelmed with a lot of stuff and also needing to create space, which can also be overwhelming. And so you have to start doing things. Like, what did you start to do then in order to, because you also didn't just like burn your life down, you know what I mean?
Just cried, Becca. No.
Honest answer, I love it. Yes, right?
Cry in therapy, right?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I have those 2 things going for me. Um, it's actually when I started, this is gonna sound, like, really wild given how you framed it up, but I started running. Um,
Oh.
so I just added no, but I started getting up in the morning, and, I mean, I'm going slow and leisurely, but I realized, like, I'd go run a trail, so I'm in nature, and I started having time, like, to myself to just process. And that one thing, I realized how much it filled my cup to the point where I was willing to get up an hour earlier, even though I already felt exhausted. Like, I feel more energized because
Mm,
I'm doing this. And so that was one thing that really helped me get centered. Um, I did have to make some big life decisions in
mhm,
that moment. And um, especially in the relationships and the people that I spent my time with, I had to make some big changes there, which was painful and challenging. And also, you start to surround yourself with people that are uplifting and aligned and supportive, and that's also very energizing and positive. So I
mhm,
think it started off with I did I had to find some space for myself to get clear headed. I started therapy too, so running and
mhm,
therapy,
mhm,
and then over time it was easier to make some of the bigger changes I personally needed to make at that time.
mhm, mhm. Well, and I think that speaks to like the, to what you're saying. There's a part of the small things, right? That especially when our identities are built into these things, right? And there's history associated with them, and that it doesn't need to be these massive overhauls, like you could
Yeah,
literally run from your life, right? Start
yeah,
running, whatever that looks like. But that it doesn't need to be these massive things. It can just be whether it, is the 10 minutes for your guitar or the hour in the morning, prioritizing yourself to understand what actually feels aligned, right? Because when we're burned out, when we're overwhelmed, when we're doing all of the things, there isn't that extra space to even think about, well, what is actually going to fuel me, right? What is going to be meaningful? How am I going to move forward? We don't even know, and we don't have the mental space to even think about that kind of stuff unless we start carving out those little moments for ourselves somehow, whether it's therapy or running or guitar or just sitting quietly, time to think, right?
right.
I think it's interesting that the physical fitness aspect of this whole thing, because and Becca, you and I have both been through that too during very pivotal moments in our lives where we also started you started your yoga and working out, and I started running as well. Jamie, you started running, and it's really fascinating to me how much that physical release can bring so much clarity in the times when you feel so low and you feel so broken. And it really can be a catalyst to start like, you know, s- carving out that time and making that time for yourself a priority, which then, those little, like you said, those little things like start to get momentum and they become bigger and bigger things. And then from there, it's almost like you're able to rebuild. So I think that's really fascinating. And I think, when big change hits, job shifts, personal loss, identity shakeups, do you feel like, because you are one of the people that I know who is the best at holding multiple identities and doing them all really well. Like you really don't suck at anything. I don't know how you do it, but you do so many things well, you know?
Whole podcast about what I said. Cammy.
Well, I don't you hide it well because you really are you've been a phenomenal leader, you're a great mother, and you also like you're really, you've become more artistic. You've always been artistic, but you started making that a priority and you're an excellent singer-songwriter. So when, how do you feel like those multiple identities have steadied you or do you feel like they've complicated things?
They definitely steadied me. It's like we've got this one beautiful life, and if we're not exploring it and finding the edges and trying new things, I don't really know what else there is. Like there's loving people, and then there's like this is a giant playground we live on. That's kind of how I look at life. That's the most optimistic way I look at life, no matter what's happening in our world. And so, um, pursuing things that are interesting to you. It's funny. Thank you for all the kind words. There's a lot of things I tried. I'm like, well, it's not that. Definitely, really not
Well,
great.
okay. Okay. Well, I know driving isn't one of your strong suits.
Some may say that's not one of my strengths. Being on time is definitely not. Um, no, but I something that I value, and this has been a big thing for me too, is understanding what are my values and then how do I live a life that honors them because that's when you feel most alive, And one
Mhm,
of my values is progress over perfection. I'm not a perfectionist, therefore I'm not afraid to write a song and sing it in front of a group of people. Like I've watched, Charlie's seen me totally botch things on stage, but I love doing it. And what if we're not showing up in our humanity and afraid to make mistakes, then we're going to hold ourselves back. And I think that mindset has helped me not be afraid to take on or try something new that might make me look silly or I might mess up or whatever that might be, or fail, frankly, like wanting some of the community work I do. It's like, what if this thing fails? And that would be heartbreaking, but also, what if I didn't try? And so I think the mindset of honor progress, honor the courage to try new things, and really try to have grace around like perfectionism and
mhm.
um and those things light me up. And so whether I do great at them or not, I'm putting myself out there and that feeling is very fulfilling.
Do you feel like if you were to look back then at the different places that you've been in life and up until now, do you feel like those values have always been there, but it was through these difficult situations or even not even difficult situations, but through the changes where they've just been more solidified? Or do you think that those really came out of, some of the experiences you had before?
I That's a great question. I imagine that they're always there. I mean, I think we're sharpening, and the way that we just naturally live our lives probably in some ways can speak to what we value. And when I'm feeling like I'm not getting fulfillment from what I'm doing, I've just come to learn that that's probably because I'm not doing this in a way that honors those things. And it was a Brene Brown podcast, bless her, years ago that there's this whole exercise. You can Google it, it's like a little workshop that takes you through identifying your values and then some prompts of, okay, how do I live into these in my career? How do I live into these as a parent in my my hobbies, whatever that looks like? How am I not living into those? And I think when I recognized what they were, I recognized the ways in which I was leading that weren't honoring those. And it helped me figure out what dials to turn to start just doing the things I do on my own terms and in a way that honors myself.
Mm. Yeah.
Well, I think it takes a lot of courage to live in that kind of way where you are somebody who's going to fail forward, right? Or you're just going to take action and just hope that everything turns out. And if it doesn't, instead of beating yourself up about it, you're like, well, at least I learned. And you brush off your boots and you get right back at it. There's so many people who spend their lives as perfectionists, afraid to take the first step. They've got all these ideas in their minds that they could, all these big dreams in their minds, but they never take the first step because they're so afraid of failure. So I think that's really cool that you make that a priority in the way that you live and just taking action and just kind of seeing what happens.
Mhm.
What part of you do you reach for first when something falls apart? I'm curious about that.
Um, the first thing that comes to mind is the like fiery anger centered part of myself. So, um, which is funny because I know, you both probably wouldn't know me. I don't experience anger. I wouldn't describe myself as an angry person. I don't, it's not an emotion I feel frequently, which is probably a good thing. But when I do, like if something really doesn't go my way or, I didn't get my way with something, um, there is something I can point at that sparks that up inside of me. And I love that feeling because if you feel like it does something within your body, there's energy flowing through your body when you're feeling that way that charges me forward. It's like a determination almost. It reminds me, like, nope, okay, challenge accepted. I'm going to be okay. So I run a little faster that day, put Rage Against the Machine on, whatever that looks like. Like
Mhm.
that's phase one for me. And then on the like totally opposite side, which is equally important, is like the intuitive, just silence the noise, the mantra, be still and know. Just if you can create quiet space, the right thing for you tends to center. And so those two parts of me, I can tie back to childhood all the way through now. They're like, they always exist and somehow they live in in relationship with each other. So it's like Enya and Rage Against the Machine. Yeah.
Jamie, I so badly want to pull up your astrology chart because you're saying these things. I'm like, yep, fire and water, here we go, and like all these things. And I'm just like, I really want to know what your chart looks like. But I think it's interesting. This morning I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about anger and rage and how like I mean, I've known you for a long time. Not like super well, but I anger is not a word I would associate with you at all, right?
Mhm.
But I also think that it is one of our most primal feelings. When you think of, I mean, everybody for all of eternity has felt that. We've just been told or conditioned that, like, no, you can't be angry, right? Especially as women, that
Yeah.
it's not something you just have to bury it and you have to suppress it and you don't want to let anybody know how you're really feeling about things. But to your point, it can be such an indicator of where we stand on things, right? And like if something is firing us up, it's gosh, I'm feeling that determination. I'm feeling that spark. It's maybe suggesting here's where my values are, right? So it's such an important part of us as complex human beings who feel all the things to feel and channel into this stuff. So I would I'm curious, are there certain like maybe I shouldn't say are there certain situations, but if those are the two parts that you go towards, right? The fire and then also the quiet time, the water and the fire. Do you feel like one has been more present when you've really decided to make a shift in your life? Like, does one offer you more clarity, or do you really think that it's, hey, I'm going to do this one first and this one? They're totally, totally balanced out. Or do you think one ends up kind of taking charge?
Yeah. Well, I definitely don't have full control over which one shows up when.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I just know, hello friend, come to me. I know you. Um, and sometimes it's like the same day, the
Mhm.
same feeling. I think I've built more of a discipline around honoring the more gentle, like reflective side. And it's actually just recently through this career change, and the noticing of how the fiery side really helped me come to great peace about what I
Mhm.
needed to do next. So it's something I probably need to honor more. And I think you hit on it. It's especially challenging for women. And what I was
Mhm.
thinking as you're saying that is like, well, yeah, because if women felt totally free to experience that type of inner fire and then roll with it, like nobody would be able to stop us, right?
Yeah,
So Yeah.
100%.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we kind of need that. And I feel like
Mhm.
it's and, like, this topic I think is really interesting because I don't know about you guys in the circles that you're listening to or whatnot, but this conversation I am seeing more and more, especially with women in approaching midlife, right? Whatever that looks like. And
Mhm.
maybe some of it is the, oh, like midlife crisis and whatever, although I think that's just a bunch of bogus.
Yeah.
But I think there's something that's happening where I feel like women are becoming more empowered to like not just do what we've been told all the time, right? And to feel into more of that. And I think we're starting to also not only embrace more of it, but know what can happen when we do. And to your point, Jamie, women cannot be controlled as easily when they're really embracing all dynamics, all sides of themselves, right? Which historically is kind of what women have been told to do. Just be there and conform. So
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Break
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
But I also think so to your point, like you said earlier that so you have a preteen daughter, right? And who honestly, I feel like she's even making a little name for herself out there, just putting herself in different situations and whatnot. But when you said you like to get up on stage and if you totally, bumble something while you're up there and she sees it, how do you think your experiences and, allowing yourself to embrace different identities and allowing yourself to move through these transitions and to make decisions for yourself, how do you think that's impacting her? And yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at that first. Like, how do you think that's impacting her?
Yeah. Well, I certainly hope. I mean, she is this fearless, confident young woman who is also so kind and like, man, I want to be you when I grow up. But just being her mom early on, I started thinking about what advice I would give her when I was thinking about what I needed to do. What advice would I give the most precious person in my life? And then give that to myself. And it started changing how I was living, and I want her to feel empowered and limitless and fearless when it comes to experiencing new things and trying things. And so it's fun for her. It's like, yeah, my mom she has this job I don't really understand, but has this nonprofit she goes and volunteers all the time at. And I've seen her get up on stage and like blow my mind. And
Mm.
my hope is I want to model for her, like, just go try the thing, go do the thing,
Mhm.
put yourself out there. And if it doesn't go well, like you should feel more proud that you tried it than that you didn't because you were afraid.
Mhm. Well, and it's like you're showing what the opportunity of being multidimensional, right? Of being multi-passionate, of what what and I'm just going to keep saying women, right? Because we're three women, we're talking about this podcast and I think the role of women and stuff. So about what women their lives can look like. And so I'm curious, like you're showing her that you can have multiple identities doing all different things. Has the concept of identity changed for you as you've embraced more identities? Like does it carry the same weight that it did when you were, just starting out in your professional career or before when you were married, or has the role of identities and the importance they play in your life changed as you've kind of navigated through things?
Probably yes. I
Mhm.
think I it used to be such a like black and white answer. My identity is the insert title, career at work, insert parent, it was like a very specific thing. And I've realized, like, okay, if I am someone who loves to lead initiatives, period. Like, I love to, let's get a vision and I want to get a group rallied behind that and let's go do it. And I've realized, oh, I do that in my job. And I naturally have done that in starting this nonprofit, and I do that in my friend groups. Like, it's like that is actually what my identity is. It's not the external name of the thing or the company or whatever. And that's a hard. I'm like just starting to circle around that. Maybe that's
Mhm.
part of why when you become midlife, you don't care as much about what people think
Mhm.
anymore, but you realize like who you are isn't necessarily what your accomplishments are.
Mhm.
It's more about just what you naturally are inclined to do, and then
Mhm.
that drives how you show up.
Well, and it's like the action too, right? Because it's if you if you enjoy leading, if you want to lead in the initiatives, right? And you want to lead in this situation, you want to lead, then you could be considered a leader and you could say like I am a leader, or it's that I like to lead, right? It's the same way with like, and I guess cuz sometimes I think that we attach the I am to our identity. I am this. So then if that identity changes, it's like, well, does that mean I am no longer that? Right. So if I
Mhm.
am a wife and that comes with all of the things that being a wife means, and then a divorce happens, gosh, does that also mean I'm not all the things that a wife was? Or is it that I am a wife because I love and because I nurture and because I connect and because I support and whatnot. And that gets carried with us no matter what the label of the identity is. Right. And I feel like that could be professionally, personally, cover a larger spectrum if that makes the identities not as important as the actions through which the identities show up.
Yeah, I
I don't know. I
agree.
don't know.
And I think no, I think
Tangent.
that's a great I think that's a great tangent. It's a great tangent though because um I think the more experiences we go through, especially the really challenging ones, right? Because those are the ones that give us pause and make us think about things that we might want to change in the way that we do things moving forward, right? And I think the more of those types of experiences that you get under your belt over time, just makes you more confident in the person that you are. It makes you
Mhm,
really stop and understand, like, okay, this particular thing I know for a fact does not align with my core values. Therefore, I don't want to do that. And I am not going to settle for that anymore. I'm going to change and I'm going to do it this way. And I think that it takes time. I think that's why it is so prevalent in midlife or getting into midlife because you've had a chance to have more experiences. Maybe
mhm,
you've been a mom, maybe you've been a business leader, maybe you've been, you know, um, insert 8 million other things. But you hear about people having identity crises, and it's because they attach themselves to one thing, right? Like
mhm,
for a long time, I was so career driven. That's all I thought about was career. I mean, my whole identity was attached to my career. But I didn't realize until later in life that there's so much more out there than just like my career. There's so many, pieces and parts of myself that I want to explore and develop. But that didn't come to me until like probably like my like for early 40s, So
mhm,
so I get where you're at. And I love that you have found a way to use your emotions, whether they're good or bad. And I don't even really know that there really are bad emotions
mhm,
because, like you said, even the fire, even the anger m- creates movement, right? It makes it is a catalyst to something to change. Um, One of the things that I wanna kind of talk to you about, Jamie, is there's a couple things. I wanna talk to you about, how you started that creative process with singing singer-songwriter, because I know you've always been, like, kind of kept to yourself to sing and stuff, but I remember it, like, when you first started going with that and when you really started, like, jumping into songwriting. What was that process like for you? And what do you think was the thing in your life that caused you to start focusing more on that and developing more um in that talent?
Yeah. It is a really weird story, and I'll make it brief. And I think the moral of it is if you have a little window or an opportunity to say yes to something and try it, and you don't know where it's going to go, just do it. But I worked with a guy who was a rapper, and I told him that I liked to sing, and he asked if I would write a hook for one of his songs and go record it, which is so funny to even think that that happened. I'm here in my little business suit and I'm like talking to this guy and I'm like, yeah, sure. And so I write a hook for his song and I go to his music studio, which was like a garage in Allendale, Michigan, and I like drop this beat on the song, and there was another guy who is also there to be on this project, and he's actually become a really dear friend of mine through that process, and he's a great musician. So I went from, like, not really even telling anybody that I sang or songwriting at all to writing a hook for a rap song. And then this other guy that was in the studio, his name's Nadal, he asked if I would want to go and join him for any of his local gigs. And so I started gigging with him. And a couple weeks into doing that, we got asked to open for Ed Sheeran at this music festival in Grand Rapids. And I remember I had just started up my job and I went to my boss like 2 weeks in and was like, hey, I need to take a day off if that's okay on Friday because I'm opening for Ed Sheeran music festival.
What?
And
I had no idea that you
yeah,
did that.
it's like one of my two truths and a lie
Oh
favorite.
my gosh. That's a
Uh,
good one.
isn't that a good one? And
Mhm.
it still is. So, I mean, the Jamie that I knew is like, that's the most wild thing I could imagine for myself at that time. And I remember being up on stage singing and to like a few thousand people with Ed Sheeran and the Wings waiting to come on. I'm like, what the heck just happened? And it's because I said yes to writing a hook for a rapper that I worked with, So it's like, I don't know. It wasn't super intentional. I'll say that. But what I realized was I loved that process. And I figured like, I've got to find more ways to insert that into my life because that was a top experience of my
Ugh.
life. And so then I started exploring songwriting more and ended up, putting an album out and and it's like the thing I do for myself. So, but it didn't start in some super like deeply intentional way.
But that's awesome too, because it shows, again, it's just an example of how, like, our identity, we could tie it back to the identity conversation, or we could tie it back to the creating space conversation, that sometimes things happen that we don't necessarily have to go and put the energy into,
Yeah,
right? Or even the identity that we think, like, yes, I'm a singer-songwriter, so I'm going to go and make this happen. It's like, I feel like that maybe kind of came around because there was an opportunity where you're like, yeah, why not? And then all of a sudden there's this, oh yeah, well, I guess now I'm singing and writing songs and chasing this dream too.
totally.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What does songwriting give you that leadership and motherhood doesn't give you?
Well, it's just mine. I think
Mhm.
like it's just for me. Sometimes I'll notice it gets put on the back burner because there's no other purpose for it than I just love doing it and I'll call myself out in those moments. But there's a lot of things I've written that no one will ever hear. Um, and it's just for me. And it's kind of like I like to journal a lot. Um, this is some of the stuff that comes out in a song is like I didn't even realize I was feeling that way until it came out. So it's become kind of therapeutic for me. Whereas motherhood and leadership, that's very much about what you're pouring in to others, which is important, I think, to feeling joy and
Mhm.
purpose in life. But songwriting I'm not doing it I'm not making the big bucks. I just do it because I love it.
Mhm.
Well, you might be. I mean, let's see what this next year brings. I mean, this might be the breakout interview, and then you're going to be world famous musician in a year. I mean, you just never know,
That's right.
right?
I just need to call my buddy Ed up. Hey,
That's
record.
right.
This
Before
is
you know it, you'll be touring with Ed Sheeran.
This is how, like, I swear, okay, and this is just totally like random, but I swear, like a few years ago, I thought you had like gone out to California to record with like Snoop Dogg or something.
Warren G. That did
Oh,
happen.
oh my gosh. So it did it. Okay. I was like, maybe it's Snoop because I've been like watching the Olympics. And so, he's like all over the Olympics. Okay. So that was real.
That was real.
I mean, so look at that. I mean, who knows what this next year will bring? To Cammie's point, you're already performing with Warren G for recording. You never know, Jamie.
I truly believe that. We just never know.
Nope,
Uh,
nope.
that's awesome.
The world is your canvas, girl.
That's right. Right.
So if you had, okay, so we've talked about all these different titles, right? Mom, leader, founder, artist. Do you like if you took all of those away, who do you think Jamie is underneath all of that?
Wow. That's the question.
Hmm.
I I don't think it's any one thing. I mean, we are like the most creative, crazy beings that are so many things at once. But my tenets have been curiosity. I'm someone who's curious and creative. I am like attracted to the thrill of trying new things, and I try to love big. I think that's who I am. Um, and I have the permission to change my mind about that at any moment. Kinda how I feel about it right now.
I have to say, so for people who aren't listening, so I'm sitting here, we're recording and we're obviously doing the video, and I'm looking at Jamie, and in her background, she has the most beautiful painting up on her wall. So if you don't typically listen to us, go and check out the YouTube just so you can see this picture, because I feel like it shows what you just spoke to so well in terms of there's different figures. They're all these different feminine figures, all different colors, abstract, looking different directions, leaning different directions, yet they're coming together and making this one beautiful picture on this canvas, right? And I feel like it is such a visual representation of what you just said.
Ah,
I
thank
don't-
you. And if I
Yeah.
could, it's the first piece of big girl art I ever purchased.
Oh,
And the artist's name is Shannon Mack. She's incredible. She's one of the most, like, empowering female artists that I've met, and I watched her paint this at a live event, at an art uh, art museum, and I was singing that night, and I walked by and saw it. It's like, "That looks like it's pricey, but that's mine. That's mine." And so thank you for recognizing it, 'cause it reminds me of that every day.
well, and now are you like, do you think about that and wonder, like, I don't know how long ago you bought it, but if there was, like, something, that intuition or just this inner knowing of, like, that's that's almost like that's representing me in a way, like, that's a story, that's part of my story, that's, like, my story coming together on this beautiful, not that it's just, quote, "story coming together," but you know what I mean? Where it's
Totally.
just it you're embodying that painting and vice versa in a way.
Totally.
Yeah.
There's shadows, I feel like I need to move my head. There's
Yeah.
shadows, and then there's these bright pops, and there's all different shapes, and it spoke to me right away.
It's beautiful.
Well, and Becca, you don't know this, but when you walk in Jamie's house, when you first walk in on the left-hand wall, there's a big picture of a gal who is leaning over. I think she's like tying on a shoe or an ice skate or something, and she's got a crown kind of tipped on the side of her head. And I remember asking Jamie about it, and she said, "Yeah, I love it because it just shows that like life, can hand you all kinds of lemons." Or I can't remember how you said it, Jamie, but you're like, "But you know what? You just have to fix your crown and get up and go, and that's how life
Yeah.
is."
I love
Right.
it. It's such a good reminder of again, like, back to the simple things, right? Maybe, like, you were talking about how you go out for a run or when you start to, tune the guitar or go to therapy or whatever it is, but sometimes it can be as simple as, like, writing something down on your bathroom mirror or a little piece of art that you're hanging on the fridge or a magnet or just the reminder of, like, "Hey, if I'm transitioning through things, if there's new identities, if there's creative passions I'm trying to pursue, like, they don't always have to be these big things, right? Back to the little things. They can just be these reminders of what we're trying to do."
Yeah.
Hmm.
Those little things become the big things. Yeah.
Totally, totally. Well, so, Cami, do you have I've got one more question for Jamie, but if you
Go, nope, go for it.
okay.
I Nope.
So I guess so kind of wrapping things up here. If somebody was listening and they're in a season of change right now, maybe feeling like one of their identities is falling away or whatnot, in what ways would you encourage them to redefine the way that they may look at their identity or identities?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned that values exercise earlier, and I'd say that it's like the foundation I mean, what we value most says a lot or illuminates a lot about who we are, what our identity is. So I would say, go through that exercise. It's kind of fun too to recognize, like, oh, here are my core drivers and what I value most, and how does that show up? Um, and then I think discipline comes into this too. It's work. Like, doing any of this is work. For several years now, I'll write goals, or maybe they're just intentions. They're not like hard driving goals. And every day I get up and I journal. I journal 3 things I'm grateful for, because I think we can learn to love the things we have in our life right now and see them more readily if we appreciate them. But I write down what I'm doing for every hour of the day. And what that helped me recognize was I'm literally filling my calendar. Am I filling it with things that I love, that align with that, or if I'm not? And it helps you identify either those little moments that you can pencil in, like my friend Anne calls them the pink time on your calendar, or um, you recognize, oh, I got to make some bigger changes here. So I think those couple tools really helped me, and I always go back to them in addition to like anger running and meditating. I always go back to those things when I'm in times of transition.
Okay, full disclosure. The thought of penciling in my entire day scares the shit out of me.
Right,
so,
let's hear
so, like, you're talking, like, you're planning, like, what do you do if it, okay, so here's a question. What do you do when it doesn't, like, if things have to change or if it doesn't change?
Well well, I already said I'm not a perfectionist, so
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
it's
Uh,
it's just an intention, right?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
sometimes I'll write it down. Here's my intention for the day, and
Okay.
I can always go back and look, and if it didn't go that way, it didn't go that way, but I really tried. I
That's
started the
fair.
day trying.
That's impressive. I will say I did not expect to. That is not something I expected to hear. I don't know what I expected to hear, but I was like, wait, did she mean that she goes back after the end of the day and writes it in to see where she spent her time? And I'm like, no, she just said that she schedules out her day. It's probably why I work for myself now. but I like the intention. I definitely can see how, yeah, I can appreciate that. Where if we're filling our time and our cup with the things that we're prioritizing, right? The things that are valuable to us, um, to take a little ownership over our day versus, everything else that can so easily come in and allow us to not have that time or not create that space for the identities that we, want to carry forward. So I
Yeah,
get the
yeah,
intention.
sometimes it's like the thing I put in that hour is don't do anything and don't talk to anyone. You can
Oh,
have fun with it. It's not just like, tasks. It's
yeah.
yeah.
That's a
Hmm.
good point. That's a good point.
I would like to say, I would like to go on the record and say that I think we're going to have Jamie back on the show in about 9 months after all of this, all the dust kind of settles
Mm.
from the recent job transition, because you're gonna go into, uh, it's going to be an interesting year for you, because you have had to be a leader for so many people for so long. Your whole world is going to get rocked here, girl. And I have no doubt you're going to figure out a way through it and do an amazing job. But I think it would be interesting to see what that process was like for you, because you're going to be filling your days with things that you want to fill your days with, and it's just going to change your world. So I'm excited for you. I mean, I say that like I'm super pumped for you to have made the decision that you did, and to just have the courage to go and just do exactly what you want to do and figure it out and let it kind of unfold. So I'm hoping that
Oh,
we'll be able to get you back on here later in about a year, 9 months to a year, and see where you're at.
well, thank you. That would be the best accountability. And this has been a ton of fun. So
Aw.
I
Well,
appreciate
thanks.
you and what you
Yeah. Well, thanks for
Yeah.
coming
Thanks for
on,
joining.
Jamie. Can you tell our guests where they can find you, and also maybe give a plug in on the foundation, because we didn't talk a whole lot about that, but I think that's something that's a big part of something that you started that's important and that's really cool.
Thank you. Yes, the organization's called the Arts Marketplace. It's at Studio Park in Grand Rapids. It's filled with entrepreneurs and artists that we give them space to sell their goods and their art, and we provide them with the space and with staffing and with some educational resources so they can take their business to the next level. But if you're just into shopping, it's like one of the coolest retail gift shops in town. So that's Arts Marketplace. You can literally find me there pretty often. In fact, I'm going to learn how to work the point of sale in this little new chapter of mine, just so I can help in a pinch. And then otherwise, you can find me um, on Instagram. Jamie Dionne Music is my tag. That's like the only social channel I'm really on. So you could find me there.
Do you have any
Awesome.
upcoming shows?
Ooh, so
Any?
put good energy into the world. I auditioned to be there's a music festival happening at the new amphitheater, the Acrisure Amphitheater
Oh, yeah.
on May 16. And I just found out I'm one of the finalists for it, but there were several hundred people that applied, and I don't know how many artists they're taking on, but hopefully, I'll be
Okay.
doing that. And then, more to come.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
awesome. Good for
Awesome.
you. I'm excited for you, Jamie.
Yeah, we're cheering you on.
Yeah, we
And
are.
Cammie
I
said that this year will rock your world, but it'll rock the world in the
In the
best
best
way,
way.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
And I absolutely meant in the best way. It's just going to be a huge transition, but it's going to be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
We're gonna be rocking is what's gonna happen. I'm
Heck
excited.
yeah.
I've got great friends to see me through it too, so and a great partner, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. That's
Awesome.
awesome.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that just about wraps up our show for today. So to anyone who's listening, if any part of the show resonated with you or you think of somebody that you might want to that might want to hear this, please share it with them and feel free to like, subscribe, and make sure you hit us up next week for our next episode. Thanks, guys. See
Thanks,
ya.
everybody.